So in today's video, I want to talk about something called underscoring. Underscoring in music, really what that means is you play music quietly under something, under maybe like spoken dialogue, under if it's in a TV scenario, or like a movie scene, movie soundtrack. And I want to talk about how we can do this, especially as piano players, because if you serve in a church, there'll be multiple instances, way too many instances where you're going to be thrown into a place where, hey, so and so, can you play something for me when I pray? Or can you play something as we, do offering, do announcements, do communion, or just play something to fill the room, right? We get asked to do that all the time. And so in today, or actually in a couple of videos that's going to come in the next little bit while, I'm going to talk about how we can do this effectively, how we can do underscoring effectively, and how do we do it in a way that we can support the dynamic and create the appropriate atmosphere for the room and the mood without being too distracting, but without being too repetitive or too boring either. And is there a way of doing this successfully and easily? So that's what we're going to talk about for the next little bit. And if you have always had questions about this underscoring, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. And in each video, I'm going to give you one method or one approach of doing underscoring that I've tried before. And I'm going to go through, the pros and cons, give you some demonstration. I'm going to let you see why I do certain ones over others. And I'm going to tell you some tips and tricks of when and where you can use some of these effectively. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about today is a very simple beginning step, and a lot of us know how to do this actually. Is the first way that you could do underscoring is you just take a section of the song that you're singing and you just loop that section a bunch. That's the easiest way to do it, and it's the best way to begin. So just to give you an example, for example, if we are doing the song Goodness of God, do it in the key of G. Say we're going to end on the chorus, and then we're going to have our pastor come out and they're going to read Psalm 23, just say, for example. So I've queued up an audio Bible of Psalm 23. So chorus, and then Psalm 23. And then what I'm going to do is just going to do a very simple method. This first approach is just loop that chorus a couple of times until the Psalm 23 is done. Let's see how that's going to sound like. So there's the chorus. And then the pastor comes up and then he starts reading
Psalm 23,
this is
a psalm of David.
Of the chorus.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
And we're done our course. So this is the first method, and this is the way that I think a lot of us begin underscoring, is just to take the section of the song and just repeat it a bunch until whoever is talking is done talking. And there are a couple of pros and a couple of cons in this method. The pro obviously is very easy to begin. It's very easy to start because the chords is something that you already practice for the song. And it's very easy to coordinate as well. If you have other band members playing with you, then obviously you just tell them, hey, we're going to play the chorus. That's much easier than, you're telling them, oh, we're going to do this chord, do this chord, do this chord. And the good thing about this is you don't have to come up with anything on the spot. It's much easier to play. So those are the pretty good pros, and that's why this is a good method to begin with. Just take a section of the song and just repeat it a bunch. But there are a couple of cons. I feel it's not that appropriate perhaps for all scenarios. I don't know if you notice this, but for me, when I play the chord progression on the song, I find it's a little bit distracting, because once the chord progressions start playing, especially from the song, then I start to imagine that melody singing in my head, especially, assuming that we've just sung that song. And that's a little distracting, because once that melody starts playing, and I'm just going to get lost in the song, and I forget that, somebody's actually reading or praying something. And I find that this is not also not that great, because for certain songs, the chords might be too close together, and it's a little bit too busy. So for that song, The Goodness of God, there are instances where, we had a chord every single beat of the measure, and I feel that's a little bit too busy. The last reason why I feel that this method may not be the best is because it's not very flexible. It's not very flexible in the sense of a couple of things. It's not flexible in the duration of the time. So when we just did that demonstration, the Psalm 23 reading was around 56 seconds, and I was able to fit 2 choruses into 56 seconds. But as you can imagine, if your pastor reads any slower, as they usually do, then you're gonna be well on your way in the 3rd chorus, and then when he or she's done, you may not be finished with your 3rd chorus. Then what do you do? So in that sense, it's not very flexible. There's also a couple things that's not very flexible in, because you're playing the chords of the song. So in terms of dynamic and mood and atmosphere, you're not very flexible in changing that, because the chords are already set. So you can't really make the chords any more calmer, or any more quieter, or any more serene, or any more dramatic if it calls for it. There's nothing you can do with it. It's not very flexible. So for me, I don't do this often, but this is a very good method if you want to begin underscoring. This is a very good thing, the first step to take. So if you were to do this, just to get a head start, I'm going to give you a few tips. The first tip that I'm going to give you is, when you play the song, make sure you don't play the melody. Make sure you don't play the melody, because once you play the melody, people are going to start singing it in their heads, and they're going to lose track of whatever the preacher was preaching about or praying about. So make sure you don't play melody. Instead, just play chords, and play long chords. Play full chords, and just play it for the whole duration of the chord. You don't even have to put anything in the middle if you don't need to. If it doesn't call for really high dynamic stuff, you can just sort of do this kind of stuff. Obviously, don't sing it. So that's the first tip I have for you. Don't play the song melody, just play long chords. And the second sort of suggestion I have for you, if possible, choose a section of the song that's where the chords are more spaced out, where the chords are longer, and maybe even, if possible, the chords are more repetitive. So in the song that we just sang, the bridge actually has more repetitive chords. It goes G over B, C, D, and then it goes back to G. So perhaps I could use that instead of the chorus, because then the chords are more repetitive, it doesn't stick out as much, and the chords are more spaced out, it's not going to be too busy. So in that case, I might try it to be something like this. Let's
Psalm 23, a psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
So you can see it's a little bit more spread out and it's a little bit more in the background. I also did one little trick that you can try as well, is in that demonstration for the bridge chords, I actually spaced out the chords, I've dragged them out. It was originally 2 beats, 3, 4, 1, 2, 2 beats each. What I've done is I've dragged it out to 4 beats each. 2, 3, 4. And that's an easy way to still take the chords of the section of the song, but you just drag them out to 4 beats as opposed to 2 beats each. That's a trick that you can do to help you, a suggestion that you can do. But obviously, again, if you can't do that, if you have other people playing with you, you can just choose a section of the song that's a little bit more repetitive, where the chords are already more spaced out. Songs that are more repetitive in nature is going to be much easier to do, like Waymaker, where it's like 4 chords to loop over again and again and again. That song itself lends very nicely to this method, where you just take the 4 chords and you just loop it a bunch, and then when the passer is done, you're done. So those are a couple of tips for you. Don't play the song melody, and if possible, choose a section of the song that's more spacious. And if you need to, spread out the chords. If you can, spread out the chords, elongate them so that it's not as busy when you're playing underneath, when you're doing underscore. So that is the method that you can try first. This is the first beginning step. Just take a section of the song that you're already playing, take the chords, and then just play them underneath, and that's going to be a good, easy way to begin underscoring. Now, if you ask, well, how do you go into the next step that's more flexible, that you have more control over dynamics and mood and atmosphere, and how do you make it more spacious and create something intentionally for the feel? That's something that we're going to talk about in the next video. So I have developed a system in our church of teaching this to our pianists, and I found it to be very helpful for them, and I'm going to share with you what I do and how I have learned to underscore. And we're going to build off of a couple of things I'm going to show you next week. I'm going to build it to something more and more complex starting next week. So please make sure you stay tuned to the channel, and if you like this kind of stuff, like this video, let me know in the comment section down below. I also have a Patreon page. If you'd like to support me there, you can consider supporting me there. It's greatly appreciated. So hopefully I'll see you in the coming series of videos about underscoring. We'll see you next week.